Is Daniel Cormier being unprofessional in his beef with Joaquin Buckley online? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. My name is James Lynch. So if you missed it, Joaquin Buckley going to Twitter today and saying, let it be known, DC, Bisping, Chael Sonnen, your mama's raised some, you know what? Y'all really trying to twist up my words, knowing damn well what I said in the cage, but it's okay. We can all have some fun. So this was in response to something that Cormier said on his show with Chael Sonnen, which we're going to watch here, talking about Buckley's call out of Conor McGregor, which if you watch my stock report video, I believe I mentioned it there. I did not like the call out of Conor McGregor. Like, come on, man, you're not going to fight him. I know people say, oh, any publicity is good publicity. It's just not a realistic fight that will frankly ever happen between Buckley and McGregor. I know they're in the same weight class, but you know, there wasn't a good call out. So I agree with DC there on this, but here's what he has to say. And then we're going to talk about DC's response to Buckley on X in a second here. But here's what he has to say.
And then he goes to the Conor McGregor thing and they start to boo him, Jail. How did he manage to turn heel in his hometown?
He asked him to stop.
How did he manage to go heel in his hometown? Then he tells them not to boo him. You can't. I mean, what is it? I have never seen. And in Universal on X, formerly known as Twitter, universally panned as one of the worst call-outs of all time. Now I'm going to see Joaquin Buckley, and he's going to approach me like they all do because he's one of those guys that does approach you. But that was horrible. How do you do that? I just don't know what he was doing. It was by far the worst. And then he goes and he calls Conor McGregor's mom a bad name. If it couldn't have gotten worse, he went further. It was bad.
So again, I agree with DC that I don't think it was the right call out because it's a fight that's likely not going to happen. Was it the worst call out in history? I don't think it was. I mean, there's worse call outs. At least McGregor's in his division. You know, that sort of is the saving grace here. It's not like, you know, a flyweight fighter calling out, like, remember Manel Kape and Adesanya wanted to fight each other. Like, what are we doing there? Like, I get that obviously, like, and I guess that wasn't a call out. That was just a disagreement at the press conference. But yeah, I just think that, like, you know, Cormier saying it was the worst call out ever. It's a little bit harsh, but whatever. But here's the part I wanted to talk about. And I want to ask you guys if you think this is unprofessional or not. So Cormier replies back and he goes, shut up. You know what? Maybe listen, you have a dumbass call out. You're getting talked about by three of the biggest voices in the game. Maybe listen. It was the worst call out in history. Don't let winning a few fights at 170 get you excited too much. Don't mention Audrey, which I'm guessing is McGregor's mother as well. So what do you guys think of the way he's talking to Buckley here? Because you got to remember too, at the end of the day, Cormier is a commentator. I know he's a personality, so it's similar to like what you see on the NBA with Charles Barkley and Shaq. So there's a little bit of that, but like, would you ever expect to see like an NFL broadcaster or an NBA broadcaster go on Twitter and talk like this? Like, it's kind of interesting. I think it's definitely worth discussing. Personally, I don't think he should be talking like this. I know people will say, oh, well, Cormier is a former fighter. You know, he's someone that has been in the cage before. I think there was a better way of him responding to Buckley here. And don't get me wrong, it's not like Buckley's being nice to him here. He's saying some pretty bad stuff, but I just think as a commentator, I think Cormier, I don't know, like I know people are getting attention on this and it's great, but do we really want like commentators beefing with fighters? I think that's kind of a weird look. And also, like, what happens if DC, you know, does one of Buckley's fights again, does commentary? Is that going to be a thing going into the fight? Like, it almost distracts from the overall thing here. I think it would have been better if Cormier said, hey, come on my show, let's discuss this or something. I don't know, but I just think that like him calling him a pussy, I think is just, I don't know. It's kind of crossing the line a little bit for broadcasting. And I know, again, Bisping's someone who can be very vocal on Twitter as well. I just wonder if this was the right choice of words. But like, I do agree with DC that the call out wasn't very good. Was it the worst call out ever? I don't think it was. I feel like there's been worse call outs. You guys let me know in the comments. Maybe I'm off base here a little bit, but again, like you don't see this in other sports. Like you won't see like a journalist or whoever. I guess I'm trying to think of like a commentator that has talked like this in this manner. I can't really think of one. If you guys have some examples, like I said, let me know in the comments. And I'm not alone on this. We had AJ, or Al, I should say, my good buddy who does great coverage, by the way, Italian MMA. He says, is it fair when UFC commentators beef this way with fighters? Am I the only one who finds this extremely unprofessional? Imagine Mike Breen calling Embiid a pussy on Twitter, which I think is a fair point. And then some people in the comments are saying, you know, it is different. DC is a former fighter. Buckley is a fighter. He's calling a hoe. MMA is a different game than basketball. Former fighter is the key word. So I do agree with Al here that I think that, again, like Cormier is not a fighter anymore. If this was two fighters, whatever, they're fighting. It's part of the game, you know, whatever. But Cormier is now part of the media, essentially, right? Like, you know, like for example, imagine if Ariel did this to another fighter. And I know Ariel's had some issues with other fighters. Fans would crucify him. They say, what are you doing? It's unprofessional. DC does it. I haven't seen a lot of pushback. You know, there's people here who seem to be supporting what he's doing as well. And look, do I expect someone to say something like what Buckley said to DC and not do anything back? No. But could he have handled this better? I don't know. I think that's worth the debate here. And you don't see that too often in this sport where you have, you know, someone talk like this. Like I've seen people, like if Cormier had come out and said, look, like if he would have gotten rid of this, okay? He says, if he would have just said, you're getting talked by the three biggest voices in the game, maybe listen, it was the worst call out in history. Don't let winning a few fights get you too excited. If he would have just done this, I don't think there's any debate here at all. It's the first part. You had a dumbass call out. Shut up, pussy. Like that sounds like what a fighter would say. It's not something that a commentator would say. And, you know, there's been some talk as well. And this is something else we can discuss in the comments is like, is there a bias in commentators? You know, I've said before, like if you have a fighter who trains at your gym or you're close with and you're commentating their fights, I think that should be disclosed right off the bat. And I think people should have that lens on when they're watching the commentator do their thing or listening to the commentator do their thing in a fight, because I do think there's times when fighters have been, well, commentators, I should say, have been maybe not biased, but you can definitely tell that they're missing things because they're spending more time raving about that fighter. You know, so that's something where I think people could have a debate here. But yeah, again, for Buckley, like, I mean, this is a guy who's got two big wins now at 170. The Luque fight, this was a big win in his hometown of St. Louis. Again, I don't think the call out was very good. And I think in general, fighters like, and just on the flip side of this, because I do have to mention this, I think Buckley saying all this, like he has a right to, but him talking like this, it's like, you're not doing yourselves any favors. I just did that video the other day on the reporter who went after Ariel. It's like, what are you doing? Like, do you not think that this is not going to make people come on your side? Like, especially with Cormier, he's like beloved right now. So him attacking Bisping, Son and Cormier, like, I don't mind him disagreeing, but like insulting them, do you think that's going to win you new fans? Like, I don't imagine there's a huge lineup of people who don't like Cormier or don't like Bisping or don't like Son. And I kind of feel like he's almost losing fans in this way. And I do wonder what Buckley is kind of thinking with this. And then look, there's certain fighters that take things personally. Like obviously he's one of them, you know, getting really upset about, you know, something that they said it was a call. Like, could DC have toned down his language a little bit and said like, hey, you know what? It was not a good call out. To say it's the worst call out in history, I disagree with DC on that. Was it a good call out? Absolutely not. No. I mean, you're not ever going to fight Conor McGregor. I'd be willing to put money on that right now. If anyone's in the comments wants to make the bet with me, more than happy to do a bet that Joaquin Buckley and Conor McGregor will never fight. So, I mean, the thing is, it's still his division, right? He's in 170. McGregor's fighting at 170. At least it makes sense. It would be far worse if it was like a flyweight fighter calling out Conor McGregor, because you're like, that fight's never going to happen. You're not going to move up a couple weight classes to get that. So that's kind of my thoughts on this whole beef between Cormier and Joaquin Buckley. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Was DC out of line? I know everyone's pretty much going to agree that it was a bad call out. I think we can, you know, get rid of that. But do you think DC should be talking like this? Do you think it makes things more interesting? Like, what do you guys think? I want to honestly know your opinion here. Not even taking any, you know, controversial sides here. I just want to know what you guys think of this. So follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.